It was probably when I was in high school. There was a
Hmm.
Teletoon was one of the network animation segment, and that's when
Okay.
they played a lot of anime. That's
Hmm.
when I saw like Ninja Scrolls. If
Hmm.
you've seen that film, it can be
Hmm.
pretty violent, and I just saw like so much
Hmm.
blood, and I was just like, you can do that in animation. I think what we're gonna see, especially with what's happening in the industry, there's gonna be a lot more independent projects, which is super exciting. It's already happening.
It's already happening. It is.
Yeah, so I'm excited to see that. And like just sometimes like students or whatnot add me on LinkedIn and then I can see like what they're up to. And I
Hmm.
see these students, they can't find work right now, so they're meeting their fellow students and making
Hmm.
stuff. They're making projects. And that's fantastic to see. And it comes down to communication. Don't suffer in silence. Just ask. Just ask.
Ask. Please
Yeah.
ask. If you're not getting something, come to me.
Yeah.
Twice, thrice, or maybe 10 times a day. Ask me, please talk, because dialogues can solve any problem. Hello and welcome to Prolific Perspectives. This is Kamal Hassan, your host and founder of Prolific Animation Studio. We are all about exploring innovation, entrepreneurship, and how to be successful. Today we have an amazing guest with us, Mike. Hey, Mike, how are you?
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good. Pleasure to have you with us today. So,
Pleasure to be
Mike,
here.
Mike, please give your brief introduction to our audience so they'll know more about you.
Sure. I'm from Vancouver, Canada, and I've been in the animation industry for about 20 years now. So I started in 2004,
Hmm.
and at first I went into traditional animation, like I went to school for hand-drawn paper and pencil, and then my first job was in Flash animation. I
Oh,
worked on a
okay.
show called Mucha Lucha, which was I believe
Hmm.
it's the first show,
Hmm.
flash animated show for broadcast. So I worked on that and then started my career in 2D. And then eventually it took me to Ireland. I ended up working at the Cartoon Saloon and
Oh,
on
great.
a
Hmm.
flash show there. But they're more well known for their features, like Song of the Sea and Brendan and the Book of Kells and those kind of things. So I was in Ireland for a while,
Hmm.
and then traveled, then came back to Canada in 2008-ish,
Hmm.
2009. And that's
Okay.
when we had a recession, which is kind of interesting because it
Yeah.
parallels a little bit what's happening now.
Hmm.
And during that time, I couldn't find work. So I went back to
Hmm.
school for 3D animation.
Hmm.
And then once I graduated from there, the work started coming back. And then I ended up just hopping back and forth between 2D and 3D projects, depending what was
Great. Hmm.
available and
Hmm.
what I was interested in as well. And
Hmm.
yeah, I ended up working on shows like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Carmen Sandiego, My Little Pony, and stuff like that.
Great. So, was there a specific animated movie or series that first sparked your desire to become an animator?
It was probably when I was in high school and
Hmm.
before the streaming services back in the day, it was all cable TV and those kind
Hmm.
of things. And there was a
Hmm.
Teletoon was one of the networks, and they had a
Hmm.
late night animation segment that they
Hmm.
played. And that's when
Okay.
they played a lot of anime. So that's
Hmm.
when I saw like Ninja Scrolls for the
Hmm.
first time. And
Hmm.
if you've seen that film, it can be
Hmm.
pretty violent. And I just saw like so much
Hmm.
blood. And I was just like, you can do that in animation. And
Great.
and
Uh-huh.
then after that, it opened up. Like I watched Akira, which is an amazing film.
Hmm.
And then it just made me realize, like at the time too, like VFX wasn't, it was more practical effects in Hollywood.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
at the time, what I was so fascinated by is that anything you can imagine, you could put it on paper in animation. So
Absolutely,
that
absolutely. In animation, we basically create everything on our own. So we become, kind of like God, right? So yeah, we can do anything we want to do when we are into the animation world. So absolutely. So what made it so unforgettable for you? Uh, Maybe one of the you sitting in thinking, I need to be a part of this magic, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's tough to pinpoint. Every project's different.
Okay.
So like
Mm-hmm.
for Spider-Man, for example, I was the animation director for the first two seasons of that show, And for me, it was more because of the role I played, it was more about what I remember more is about the teams and about working with the amazing artists. And like there's I was kind of in charge of three animation lines and a revisionist team, and also communicating with directly with the director, and then also having to sometimes talk to the clients themselves about the vision of how we're moving the characters, how they're
Okay.
acting, and stuff like that. So just the
Mm-hmm.
collaborative atmosphere on that show was amazing, and just
Mm-hmm.
talking with all the different departments and just helping to mentor the teams was like it was fantastic. So I really love that experience.
Uh-huh.
But when you're talking specifically about the work shows that stand out for me
Mm-hmm.
is like Carmen San Diego, for example.
Okay.
That show I think is just really beautiful. It's just beautiful. And I think
Uh-huh.
yeah, again, it was a huge collaborative effort. There was a studio in the States, I can't remember the name of it, that was in charge of the design, the look of it. They
Mm-hmm.
did a lot of commercial work. They did like a Lyft commercial that's really pretty as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know the showrunner really loved the look
Mm-hmm.
of what that studio was doing and really wanted them
Mm-hmm.
to do the character designs. And so that's kind of what helped like start the look of the show, Carmen San
Mm-hmm.
Diego. And I believe they were also in charge of the masters for the backgrounds. So like they would do the like the environment set, they'll do the main master image, and then our internal teams will then do all the different angles and whatever else we need for the episode. This
Okay.
show also had After Effects department, and they touched every single shot. Where sometimes on other 2D shows I've worked on, not every
Mm-hmm.
shot gets that After Effects treatment, but
Yeah.
this one did, and I think it
Mm-hmm.
really made it look very cohesive. And you can see dust particles in the air on certain shots, and it's just really well
Mm-hmm.
done on that regard. And then yeah, I could keep talking about it forever with all the different departments and
So
the effects teams.
as you
So
just mentioned that you were the animation director in Spider-Man first two seasons. So
yeah.
what leadership lessons have you learned from directing projects like Spidey and his Amazing Friends and the Hollow Spider-Man and all of that?
Oh, there's so many lessons. It's hard to just distill it down to one. Um, yeah, I guess it really just if you're looking at it in terms of production, it just comes down again to good communication and just making sure you talk like down to the animator, like if you don't think you can finish your shots on time,
Mm-hmm.
don't just like suffer in silence and try and work like super crazy late nights,
Mm-hmm.
which I think we're all guilty of at some point, but just
Mm-hmm.
talk to your supervisors, talk to people, and just say, hey, I don't know if I'm going to finish. The earlier you can flag these things, the better we
Mm-hmm.
can work as a team to solve them and move forward. So I think just communication is key, which I think is you could translate that in any field you
Mm-hmm.
go into, really, to be honest.
Okay, great. So, if we talk about challenges, what unique challenges did you face transitioning between 2D and 3D animation, and how did you overcome them?
Um, for me, I found it wasn't. It was the technical challenge was the biggest one for me. I'm definitely more on the creative end of things.
Mm-hmm.
So learning like constraints and dealing with parent constraints, which can be very confusing at times because there's parent constraints and then there's constraints and like they act differently.
Mm-hmm.
And so just kind of figuring all those things out sometimes can wreck your head.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so yeah, it was definitely more of the technical stuff. That was my challenge. Uh, a good example was when I was in school for 3D animation. Um, the I was kind of in it was a 6 month program, and so it's really intense. And so I kind of tell people you either need to know the program Maya, or you need to know how to animate. You can't do both. You can't learn both in the time frame. So I knew how to animate, but I didn't know the program. So that was my crux, was the technical challenge. And then the other students in my class, some of them had worked in animation before, but doing modeling,
Oh. Mm-hmm.
or they worked like for an architecture firm and stuff like that. So they knew the program in and out, but they didn't know character animation. So it was a really good pairing in class because I was able to help them with the creative and like storyboards and things like that. And then they were able to help me with like um, texturing and edge flow and all that kind of stuff. Um, so I had a classmate which was he walked by one day when I was modeling my character, and he looked at it and I was like, "Hey, how's it going?" And he's like, do you mind if I just something was bothering him about it? I was like, no, go for it. He
Uh-huh.
sits down and he could just goes bah, 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 bah. And what would have taken me probably the whole day, he did it in like 20 minutes and just like helped solve some edge flow problems that I had. And so yeah, I guess that's another lesson, is just lean on your colleagues, and
Uh-huh.
you don't have to be good at everything, and just yeah, help each other out.
Great. So you started as in 2D animator, transitioning from 2D to 3D animation. Uh,
Yeah.
I want to talk about with you about AI as well. That how often you
Mm.
use AI, and what do you think of the future of AI? Would it be helpful for animation industry or not? Or is it going to affect the jobs of the animators or directors or everyone? So, with the rise of AI animation, what are your thoughts on how it will coexist with human creativity?
Yeah, that's a huge subject.
It is indeed.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
this is definitely yeah, for sure at the forefront right now, especially with our industry kind of in a bit of a lull at the moment. It's definitely on everyone's minds. Uh, I feel like yeah, it's multi-leveled. I feel
Hmm.
one issue is there's a lot of people that aren't creatives that now feel like, oh, this tool now allows me to be a creative. And so they're like, I'm a filmmaker now. But they haven't gone through like the work of learning visual storytelling. They don't understand those
Absolutely.
principles. So then you get a lot of garbage
Hmm.
out there.
Yeah.
But I do believe if it's in the hands of creatives, it can be powerful. It can't replace creatives in my mind, but it
But Mike,
can
don't
be
you think,
cool.
if creative people, even if they'll take help from AI, or maybe it will be a powerful tool for them, wouldn't be some IP issues? Because AI will be giving us a collective information, whatever they have from, certain platforms, forums, or engines. Don't you think, everyone will be facing IP issues and all if they'll be taking help from AI?
It depends how you use it. Like I don't think we should like definitely the way AI was born through scraping data of artists without permissions. That I 100% don't agree with. And but I don't think AI is going away, but what I'm hoping for in the future is there'll be regulations and things in place so artists get that their information that was used, they could either opt out or get paid their dues.
Mm-hmm.
And it the tool is used yeah, in a better way that's not breaking any legal issues. That being
Mm-hmm.
said, a good example of how I see AI being as a benefit is there was a video surfacing with Sony and how they
Mm-hmm.
used the tool for the Spider-Verse. And with the look of the Spider-Verse, it's got that kind of outline comic
Mm-hmm.
book look to
Mm-hmm.
it.
Comic book style,
And
yeah.
yeah, and that was kind of like a plugin or something that was used
Mm-hmm.
that's added. So the animator animates the character, does their performance and
Mm-hmm.
creates the work, and then this line art gets applied, but it's not
Mm-hmm.
perfect. It doesn't stay with the jaw, it doesn't stay with the character that well. So then the animator has to go in and make adjustments and like say, oh, it needs to follow this line, it needs to move here on this frame and whatnot. And then the AI learns and it learns those changes. And so then as time goes on, there's less and
Mm-hmm.
less fixes that the animator has to do because the AI has learned that. And to me, I was like, that's a perfect example of how AI should be used.
So basically, you're saying it's much more like motion capture. We do the actions and we'll just do the cleanups. The same goes to the AI. We'll get a produced project from the AI. We'll just do minor, cleanups to make it perfect.
Yeah, yeah, one example. I think
Hmm.
there's probably more examples that will come up as
Yeah,
AI gets developed.
as it will get more mature, because I think there'll be more 5, 10 years, maybe 1 decade to get AI fully mature. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we'll see. Time will tell. But and then I was thinking in my mind too, like w with
Hmm.
those moving images that people put in a prompt, and then you've
Yeah.
got like
Uh-huh.
a moving image. I could see
Hmm.
stuff like that being used in like Hollywood for like if there's a scene live action and like
Hmm.
there's a television on the background and like they
Hmm.
need like B-roll on the television.
Hmm. Hmm.
That is a good use in my mind for AI. Stick some B-roll on that thing and you're good, you're good. But the main performances, the intent of the shots, all the other stuff, I really think like the human aspect of it still needs to come from us.
Hmm.
Because that's what drives our content is story and connection and that human connection, and you can't fake that with just sticking a prompt in there. You need that human touch.
Absolutely, absolutely. I would agree with you 100%. So, having worked on TV series, feature films, and game cinematics, how do you adopt your approach to different formats?
um yeah, it's a lot of times there's a show bible, so there's already rules in place. Sometimes as an animation director, I help write some of
Mm-hmm.
that show Bible information. But
Mm-hmm.
you kind of look at what the vision is of the show creator and what they're
Mm-hmm.
trying to achieve. Um, what is the story? Who's the demographic? All of that stuff, and then you approach it from from that lens. And
Mm-hmm.
so as animators, you become very adaptable to different styles. And so it always bothered me when applying for jobs, and if you don't get the job and they say, "Oh, you're not in the style that
Yeah.
we're looking for," it's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, what's your style? Because as animators, our job is to match your style. Like
Yeah.
we can do that. And
Mm-hmm.
so part of my job too as a supervisor or animation director is to help the team find that find that path. So I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I have a good grasp of that,
Mm-hmm.
and just you ask your questions, you find out what you're going for, and then make those changes. Like the last show I worked on, it's a preschool show, and it's teaching kids how to code. And so there's
Mm-hmm.
a cute kid robot character, and I joined the project on season 2, and
Mm-hmm.
um, I was very client facing in this show. So the first thing they said when I joined was, we didn't quite get the character right in season 1, and so we want to make some adjustments. And one of them is they felt the robot character was too human-like in its movements. It
Mm-hmm.
just moved like a boy.
Mm-hmm.
And so they don't wanted it to be like sterile and robotic 100%. They want that kind of kid wonder, but also having that robotic sense. So I helped to kind of focus the team on, like, instead of having the character, if it's like
Mm-hmm.
reaching for a cup, and like, don't turn the head, move the body and the hand all at once like you may with a human character. And a human character, you may dip the COG and create an arc and have that nice organic feel. But robotic, so let's break those parts up, like maybe the head would move first, linear movement, and then the body, and then the hand reaches for it and grabs. And then when there's like an acting moment, then you could give some of that boy-like feeling. You could be a little
Oh,
bit more organic with it. So it's kind of finding that balance. So yeah, stuff like that where you just kind of, okay, what is the show creator looking for? What do they want? And then how do we achieve that with actionable steps that you could break down and then share with the team?
great. So working on, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, such as iconic franchise, Must have
Yeah.
been an incredible experience for you. And how did you approach animating these legendary characters while staying true to their legacy but adding your own creative touch?
Yeah, so on Turtles, I was an animator on that one. So it's kind of nice I can just focus on
Uh-huh.
playing around with these wonderful characters. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it was definitely one of those, like a lot of the shows I've worked
Mm-hmm.
on my career aren't necessarily shows I would personally watch. Like I'm not the demographic. But Turtles, I grew up watching Turtles, like the one from the 80s. So like I was a fan as a boy, and so being able to work on it,
Mm-hmm.
as an animator was fantastic. And like yeah, Michelangelo was my favorite character, and just getting to play
Mm-hmm.
around with him was just,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, super, super fun. Um, so yeah, when you get on board on a show, like I said before, there's a show Bible, so you kind of read up on how this particular show is approaching these characters. What are the rules? How do they want them to move? And all those things. And then once you have that knowledge, you play around with the rigs, and then you get your shots, and then so every shot you get, like the character needs to go from like point A to point
Mm-hmm.
B,
Mm-hmm.
but the in between, that's kind of up to you. That's where you can have that creative freedom. So like if a character needs to walk from this side of the room to that side of the room and has to, pick up a sword or something, like when he picks up the sword, does he do a flourish with it? Does he like stick it in his back? Like what's his personality? What would he do in that situation? And that's where you got to have fun with it, and bring your own acting chops to the forefront.
Uh-huh.
If you usually on shows, if you want to change something that's a bigger departure from the storyboards, just run it up the chain. And if it makes the show better, usually they say yes. So,
Absolutely.
yeah,
So, as an animation director and supervisor, how do you maintain creativity while managing a team?
uh, this is where I really enjoy things, because I get to look at stuff on the bigger scale rather than
Mm-hmm.
kind of focusing on a shot by shot basis. I'm looking at the whole. So one thing I really love doing, and Spidey and His Amazing Friends is a really good example of that,
Mm-hmm.
because um, Disney and Marvel continuously wanted to bring in new characters. So we constantly were having more characters added to our show, like Sandman, Black Cat, Electro, like all these characters kept coming. So then I had to, like, on TV shows, because the schedules are so tight, you have an animation library usually. Um, you try to build that up before the show begins, but usually it happens simultaneously. And that's where you have like walk cycles and run to stops and facial expressions and all that. And so animators can kind of plug that in as a starting point.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where we can really help establish the movement and look and feel of a character to help the animators understand how this character is supposed to move. So one example was we had earlier on in the show Hulk, and so Hulk, he's trying to figure out his power. He's still not sure about his strength yet in our show, and he's like he accidentally
Mm-hmm.
like crushes things a little bit too much, and he's got
Uh-huh.
anger. He needs to calm down, and Spidey helps
Mm-hmm.
him calm down. So he's a
Mm-hmm.
big character, and so like he's got that weight to him, and he's got that organic feeling. And then in season two, the Thing was introduced to our show, which is
Uh-huh.
from Fantastic Four. He's a big rock
Mm-hmm.
guy. So he's also a really big character. So now you've got these two really big characters on screen, and it's like, how do you make them different from each other? How do you make them move differently? So that's where like something I got to have a lot of input on, which I was very grateful for. So with the Thing, for example, I thought, well, he's a little bit of an older character in our show compared to the Hulk, and
Mm-hmm.
he's more comfortable with his powers. Like he's lived with them longer, and he's also
Mm-hmm.
um, made out of rock. So
Uh-huh.
the decision was to make him more still, so practice stillness with him. So he doesn't move unless he has to move. Where the Hulk, if the Hulk punched something, he may have like a bigger antic, and then he follows through, and then he settles, and he's like, "Rah!" And then he may have a bit of a breathing moment, right? With the thing, keep him still. When that rock comes and he's going to smash it, he just punches through, but he doesn't have to like overshoot and settle. It'll just follow through, and then the force will go through the rock, and the rock will smash outwards, and that'll be where the momentum it travels,
Mm-hmm.
and then he'll just like settle back and
Mm-hmm.
ease into maybe a moving hold or something with some follow through and
Mm-hmm.
that kind of stuff. So it's just really finding those ways to separate them through their movement, and that's where I got to be very creative with those choices.
Great. So, what's the biggest challenge animators face today, whether it's with tools, storytelling, or industry fast pace? How do you personally tackle these challenges? In my opinion, the storytelling. That's where they face the challenges because everyone knows, how to use a program. There are animators, but when it comes to storytelling, that's where they face everything, hard. They find, a bit challenging. That's my opinion. What are your
Mm,
thoughts?
okay. Yeah, well, I find for animators on a project, the storytelling is usually the director and the show creator, and they're kind of like steering the ship to make sure
Mm-hmm.
that story is being told the way it needs to
Mm-hmm.
be told.
Mm-hmm.
So the animators in a way don't have to worry about it as much. They need to understand the story, and they need to know the intent of their shot that they're working on. So the story moves forward, but they can lean on their supervisors
But
and
Mike,
uh,
for animators, I think before they animate a character, they should feel the character and become that character first before they actually animate it. So,
mhm.
what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think yeah, definitely they need to understand the characters for sure. That's definitely a huge part of it. But I think uh one of the things I find is
Mm-hmm.
is challenging for animators is sometimes is just understanding feedback from notes. So like interpreting or misinterpreting feedback.
That's the toughest part.
Yeah. So again,
Yeah.
just it comes down to communication. Don't suffer in silence. Just ask. Just ask.
Ask, please, please
Yeah.
ask. If you're not getting something, come to me,
Yeah.
twice, thrice, or maybe 10 times a day. Ask me, please talk, because dialogues can solve any problem. Because
Yeah.
I face this challenge from my team, we are giving you feedback, come to us. If you don't understand, at least talk. Have scrums every day, discuss the feedback before you actually implement it. So I would
Yeah.
agree with you.
And
So,
even just talking to
mhm,
like
mhm.
your fellow coworkers, like I
Yeah,
find a lot of times when people come with a problem, someone else has
hmm,
had the same problem. So just
yeah.
communicate again, it comes down to communication. Just, talk with each other. We try to like have like mini workshops like for like half an hour once a week kind of thing, and just like show stuff like this is how you do this, or this is an easier way to do this, and stuff like that, because yeah, we're all doing the same thing. We're working together as a
Yeah.
team, even though it can be
Hmm.
very individual. At the same
Hmm.
time, like, yeah, show each other stuff, ask questions, like especially working from home or hybrid. When I was younger and working in the studio, so many times I learned stuff just by turning around and seeing somebody doing something, and I was like, "How did you
Yeah.
do that?" And then you
Yeah.
go over there, and then someone else is like, "What are you guys doing?" And then there's like a crowd watching somebody show something, and so it's
Uh-huh.
just like an organic way of learning that we've lost a little bit with how we work today. So you kind of have to kind of like organize those moments instead of them being spontaneous. You just have to be like, oh, that thing, that's really cool. Let's see if other people are interested, and just share like a video link and be like, hey, you know, Mary's showing something. Let's take, if you're interested in knowing how to do
Uh-huh.
this, we're on this chat. And just make those moments happen.
Great. So, what do you see as the biggest opportunities for animators in the next decade?
Oh, it's I think what we're gonna see, especially with what's happening now in our industry, there's gonna be a lot more independent projects, which is super exciting. It's already happening. Um, yeah, so I'm excited to see that, and like just um, like sometimes like students or whatnot add me on LinkedIn, and then I can see like what they're up to, and
Mm-hmm.
I see these students, they can't find work right now, so they're meeting their fellow students and
Mm-hmm.
making stuff. They're making projects, and that's fantastic to see. And I think we're gonna see some really cool stuff that comes out of that, and they're gonna be bigger things. So just yeah, just all of this, and also all the talent. Like there's amazing, like
Mm-hmm.
director level people out there that can't
Yeah.
find work right now, and then they're organizing too. And so
Absolutely. And it's actually happening because, I've been in discussion last time in Palo Alto, you were having a chit chat on networking, dinner. Everyone was talking about that. Every director, every individual, they're trying to, build something on their own. They're working on their own personal projects because, animation studios or big names like Fox Studios, Netflix, Disney, Pixar, they'll all focus, on profitability in the next few years more. They'll try to implement AI 100% to maximize their profits. So
yeah,
for artists and animators, we were talking about it, and everyone was like, "Focus, build something on your own. Work on your small projects." So I would agree with you 100%. So and lastly, I want to ask you like advice. What advice would you give to aspiring animators aiming to work on a global franchise?
um, just yeah, just keep honing your craft and take in feedback and apply that feedback. Um, and yeah, and just don't stop. Just keep working on
Hmm.
on your craft. But
Great.
like
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
just one example story with that is
Hmm.
I was at a job fair representing a company, and um, some people looking for work would show me their demo reels, and like sometimes I find like people working those booths who are looking at reels will just be like, "Oh, good,
Hmm.
yeah." But I try to
Hmm.
give really constructive feedback as much as I can. So
Hmm.
I'd be giving like notes as if you were on a show and you're an
Hmm.
animator on my team. I would give that
Hmm.
detailed level of notes as much as I can. So I'm like critiquing these demo reels, and then they're like, "Thank you very much." And then the next day, um, you know, HR, the recruiters would give me reels to look at, and I'd see these exact same demo reels come through
Hmm.
and no changes made. And it's like,
Hmm.
why would I want to sit down and interview and possibly, give you a job when you know what to adjust to, and they're not like create, it's not gonna the notes I gave are like polished notes, and it would just take it to the next level, but you're not gonna, I'm not telling you to start over. So you can apply these changes. So why not make some
Yeah.
adjustments before you apply, especially if
Hmm.
you're applying to the person that you just showed your reel to. So that's my head scratcher where I don't understand why people don't make those changes. That being said, though, not all advice
Uh-huh.
is great. So definitely take what you will, and throw away what doesn't work for you, especially if it's your own personal stuff. Like you don't have to listen 100%,
Yeah.
but when there's clear mistakes, like it's a mistake, not a creative choice, you may want to fix those if someone points them out.
Absolutely. So thank you so much. I really enjoyed this conversation, and thank you so much for joining us today, Mike. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Prolific Perspectives. We hope you enjoyed our conversation with Mike. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more insightful content. Until next time.